All right, thank you very much, Deputy Clerk, members of council, members of the public, and members of our staff, as well as our solicitors on board with us today. Welcome to the Priority Council meeting. This is a special Priority Council meeting being held on Monday, October the 28th. It's just a little after 12 p.m. We have a short agenda, but a very important item to discuss on our agenda. So, Council, I'm very grateful that you were able to all join us and the members of the staff as well. Council, we will have approval of the agenda at this time. Be it resolved that Council of the Township Clearview hereby approve the Priority Council meeting agenda for October 28th, 2024, as presented. Deputy Mayor, Mr. Broderick, thank you. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I'll call the motion. All in favor? And that motion carries. Thank you. Council, disclose your pecuniary interest in general nature thereof for the items that are on this agenda. Anybody got any disclosures at this time? All right. If something comes up during the meeting, please bring it forward. We'll deal with it right away. So we're going to move to item number 3. This is a report from our CAO. It's in regards to our water capacity allocation agreements and the project funding for this project that this township's been working on for many years, unfortunately. And we are very close to securing an agreement with our developers and a grant opportunity from the province of Ontario. So perhaps, if I may, I will dispense with reading this motion and I'll go directly to the CAO for comments, and we can have commentary about it, and then we can read the motion if necessary, if we decide we're going to read it. Okay, members of council, let's go right to the CAO. Mr. Ferguson, welcome.
Thank you, Your Worship. To begin, I'd like to be able to say that this is our second kick at the can, so to speak, in applying for funding from the province. We're seeking $35 million. We have to be able to match that in order to get $35 million. As everybody knows, infrastructure costs have increased significantly over the last several years. And in order to put this package together, we actually have to have agreements with developers that demonstrate to the province that we can fund and finish this project. So with that said, a lot of the units that need to be built are in the settlement area, and there's some future interest in possible units beyond our settlement area, as I had reiterated to council before. So the developers are willing to step up and contribute roughly $31 million in this arrangement. We're looking at contributing almost $5 million. All of this is recoverable when homes are built and DCs are recoverable at that time. So we're sort of lending money to the process in order to make sure that we can get this money to build the necessary infrastructure. So these agreements are important, and we're almost finalized with these agreements. There's a couple of pieces left that we still have to work out. That's why the resolutions are crafted the way they are, to allow myself to make a decision with the assistance of our legal counsel and staff to make sure that we finalize this agreement and not making any significant changes to it, but just to get it over the hump. We have to have our application in by November 1st. So time is of the essence. And that's really why we're here today. And I can answer further questions if council has any.
All right. Perhaps we can go to our solicitor. Jim McIntosh is on board as well. And Jim, do you have any comments about the work that's gone into preparing these agreements and the outlook for successfully seeing these agreements signed? Good afternoon, Jim.
Good afternoon, Your Worship, and thank you. Yeah, there has been a lot of work that has gone into these agreements. The agreements are based on an earlier version where we were trying to put together funding for this project to proceed in the fall of 2022. And unfortunately, at the time when we were at the threshold of getting the agreement in place for the funding, the resulting cost was just too much for the development community to bear and support at the time. But with the new opportunity to get up to $35 million in provincial grant fundings, the cost to the developers to fund this project through development charge early payments has become more reasonable and affordable. And we have 3 developers who are very significant in terms of their land holdings in and around Stayner that are prepared to step up and provide roughly $10 million each in development charge early payment funding to help cash flow the project through to completion. Once the project is completed, the anticipated completion date being sometime in the spring of 2027, there will be a significant increase in water capacity supply to Stayner, which will allow these developers and others to go forward with the development of their lands in Stayner, having water capacity at that time. The agreement does provide for the immediate use of some existing capacity that was put on hold in 2020 when we identified the need for water capacity expansion in Stayner. And it also provides for some access to water capacity on a somewhat earlier basis for each of the participating developers, in recognition of the fact that they're really financially carrying the ball here and allowing this project to go forward. So with their contributions and the provincial grant contribution, it is a project that is viable for the township. We have an agreement in place, as CAO Ferguson had indicated, that is in final form, subject to some fine tuning on 2 residual points that we do not see as being a major impediment to getting this completed in time to submit the agreement in final form with the grant funding application, which is due on November 1st, if council approves going forward in accordance with the motion.
Well, thank you very much for your work on this, Jim, and to John, our CAO, as well as many staff members. Senior staff have been involved in this process. I'll open the floor now to our councillors. Council and Deputy Mayor, do you have any questions to our staff, to the CAO about this project and this motion? I see okay, Deputy Mayor, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Either to John or to Jim, I think it's great we're this close now. I'll take Jim's words of wisdom that we only have a couple minor issues to deal with. I hope when it's all going forward, we do have a few individual projects, people already chirping at us for, support. Just let's not forget them, the small guys that we, that we can help where we can with some of our existing capacity. And let's just play it by ear, but we may have to do some arm wrestling with the developers. I can't see them all using everything all at once. So anyways, just a comment.
Thanks very much for that, Deputy Mayor. Certainly that's something that I talked about with our CAO and with the solicitor in a conversation briefly. And we do want to assure individual residents around the Stayner community that are dealing with infill lots and other building permit requests that we will do everything we can to work with them to help find and secure that. John, would you like to comment further on that?
So for the most part, most allocations won't occur until the infrastructure is built. We have had discussions with at least one developer where we know we can get some units. The total units is not disclosed at this time, but we will be able to work with a few priority projects within the community. But there will be a limitation on that. We'll describe that later. We haven't finalized any arrangements there. We just have verbal discussions. And part of the reason why the 3 major developers that are participating in this, they're putting up over $10 million each. So that's the risk that they're taking, knowing that many of the units, we don't have the settlement area expanded. So it's a risk to them to come forward. And as a result, they want all the early units as much as possible. Some developers won't budge on it, but we do know that we're dealing with one developer that I think we can get a few units from.
That's a fair comment.
Go ahead.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Other members of council with any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. Walker.
Thank you, your worship. I noticed through this, that they talked about each contractor or each development would have a spokesperson. My question is, who will have that final say? They're working together between us and the individuals from each of the developers. Who will have that final say overall, when it comes to that last comment?
Through you, your worship, very good question. Ultimately, developers want fulsome involvement with, how the tender is going out, what the final costs are. They want to be a part of those decisions and discussions. Ultimately, in the agreement, we want to work with them fully through this process, but also want to maintain, the final control of the document, because we're going to be responsible to the province on the 35 million if we get it. And what our names will be on this as a municipality, and we need to maintain a certain amount of control as it relates to there. But when you're dealing with something of this magnitude, it's not uncommon to have developers highly involved in what's happening. They want to make sure that the costs don't go over too much, and we're prepared to work with them on that. They've asked for that, but we want to maintain as much final control as possible.
Thank you very much. Good point. Other members of council, any questions or comments? Yes, Mr. MacArthur.
I'm just wondering, have we reached out through the engineers at all to see if the 70 million is still pretty good ballpark for this project, or are we just assuming?
John, would you like to handle that, or is that something for Dan? No?
Thank you, worship.
We're going to go to Dan. Hello there,
Yeah,
Mr.
sorry.
Mr. Pro.
Thank you, worship, through to Councilor MacArthur. The latest update from our engineers is based off the current DC. So that was done earlier in 2024 in the spring, I believe it was. So that's the estimate that we're going with, which was included in the update to the DC recently. So,
Okay.
I think we've seen over the last couple of years that maybe some tendering costs have come down, some tendering pricing has come down from estimates. So we're hopeful that it's going to be a bit lower.
Okay. Again, it's going to go to a RFP and we'll take tenders and see how it goes. All right.
Yeah, and to Councilor Walker's point, maybe I just add that any tendering process that happens, it will be through the municipality, and it's our contract with the contractor that really real reason why we need to maintain as much control over that process as possible, because it's an agreement with another contractor separate from this funding agreement. So that's
Absolutely.
a good point.
Thank you. Phyllis, Councilor Janine.
All the comments now are what my concerns were. And they've all been answered very well over the meetings that we've had. Also, the contingency fund, there's a limitation, like a limit to the contingency. We can't go over a certain amount, or there's a contingency fund, but there's a limit to that as well, right?
Dan or John? John's going to take that. Thank you.
Thank you, your worship. So contractually, there are contingencies for both the developers and the municipality. We do keep a certain amount of money aside from that, just as an additional contingency. If the prices come in a little high, ultimately, that's why we want to keep this contract tight. Make sure that we're not spending money needlessly, try to keep the change orders down to a minimum, and get this project built on time is always the objective. But you always like to have those little protection contingencies in place, and you want some contractually. So contractually, the developers have a 10% contingency within this agreement.
All right. Thank you for the good question. Is there other members of council? Any questions? Going once? No? All right. I have only one statement, really, I think, which is key here. And that is that this is a very unique situation in the fact that we're working with three major development groups They are going to be effectively partners working together. The three competitive commercial companies are all going to be working together to bring this water service here to our community. Because it's interesting that, sometimes these corporations will compete with each other as they try to sell houses and so on. I think this is a very, very, very good point that they are actually working together to bring this infrastructure together for the benefit of all of their projects, all of this community, and all the residents here in Stayner and Clearview Township. So first of all, I'm very, very grateful that they have agreed to work together. I'm very, very grateful that they're working with our staff on a very, good relationship. I'm very grateful that our staff have excellent information available right away that they can rely upon and pull out to have good calculations of available units of water and what the capacity projections would be. And so I must say for council to know, Mr. Ferguson, our CAO, has kept me up to date as best as he can, because to be honest, I want to hear everything, but he's been busy talking to these folks, so I don't get to talk to him as much as I had wanted over the last little while. But I must say, John, you've really led this very well, and I'm very, very, very optimistic this is going to be a very positive outcome. Mr. Ferguson.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have to share the workload with obviously our consultants, Watson's and Associates, Daryl Abbs and Gary Scanlon, the work that Jim has done, and our staff, Dan and Amy and Kelly and Patty have been instrumental in guiding us through the complexities of an agreement like this. There's things that we like, there's things that we don't like, but this is frankly, we won't get infrastructure built without this process. We wouldn't get it built without the developers stepping up, and we're stepping up as well. So we need each other to build this. And that's really where we are.
Thank you for those comments. And thank you for mentioning Daryl and Gary Watts. They've been terrific assets and supporters of our community and their work that they've done developing our DC bylaws. You recall, council, the presentations that we've had from that team. They couldn't be with us today, but we're very thankful for their work. If there's nothing further, I'm going to read the recommendation, and then, you guys can consider a mover and seconder and whether we want any changes or anything. So here is the recommendation. Be it resolved that Council of the Township of Clearview hereby receive report CAO 009-2024. It's the DC Early Payment Project Funding and Water Capacity Allocation Agreements dated October the 28th, 2024. And item 1, that bylaws be presented to council at the October 28th, 2024 meeting, authorizing the mayor and clerk to sign the DC Early Payment Project Funding and Water Capacity Allocation Agreements with 863194 Ontario Limited, 863195 Ontario Limited, the Estates of Clearview Inc., McPherson Builders Clearview Limited, and Kingsman Group. And item 2, that council provides the CAO delegated authority to make and approve minor amendments to the agreements as necessary that do not substantially change the intent or direction of the agreements, in consultation with the township's solicitor after the approval of the bylaws. And item 3, that council directs staff to attach the agreements to the township's Housing Enabling Water Systems Fund application for submission to Infrastructure Ontario by November the 1st, 2024. Council, that's a very important motion in front of us. I'll look for a mover on this motion, please. Mr. Broderick, thank you so much. Is there a seconder? Mr. Walker, thank you so much. Council, if there's nothing further, council, I'm prepared to call the motion. All those in favor? And a unanimous decision from this council on this very important motion. Thank you, council, for that. At this time, then, we'll move on in our agenda. I do want to thank Jim McIntosh for joining us. I'm not sure if he needs to stay because you're a busy man, but thank you for joining us as we pass that resolution. Let's see. On our agenda, council, we're going to go to item number 4, which is bylaws. Bylaw 2477, a DC Early Payment Project Funding and Water Capacity Allocation Agreement. The recommendation is this: be it resolved that bylaw 2477, being a bylaw to authorize entering into development charge, early payment, project funding, and water capacity allocation agreements with 863194 Ontario Limited, 863195 Ontario Limited, and the estates of Clearview Inc. and McPherson Builders Clearview Limited, together referred to as McPherson, and the Kingsman Group, to be presented and read a first, second, and third time finally passed the 28th day of October 2024. Mover and seconder, Deputy Mayor, thank you. Mr. MacArthur, thank you. All right. Any questions on the bylaw? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All in favor? That also carries unanimous. Thank you very much, Council. All right. I would say to our CAO, to our solicitor, and to our staff, good luck. I would ask that you continue to keep the office of the mayor appraised of what's going on. And I will commit to members of council that you will hear from me if there's any changes as they move along. But thank you so much for that. At this time, I'll read the bylaw to confirm our proceedings of this special meeting. Be it resolved that bylaw 2475, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 28th, 2024 priority council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time finally passed on the 28th day of October 2024. Deneen and Beelan, thank you very much. Any questions? Seeing none, I'll call the bylaw. All in favor? And that bylaw carries unanimous. Now our motion to adjourn. Be it resolved, the council adjourn at 12:23 p.m. on this date. Deneen and Beelan again, thank you. All those in favor? That carries unanimous. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us today, taking time at the lunch hour to have this important priority meeting. And thank you to our staff for putting this together. Have a good afternoon, everyone.